Pregame.com.
I'm Vegas Runner, here with Brian Leonard. Going to break down some Big East action for Saturday. Defending champs UConn at Syracuse. The way we're going to do it is simple. Both myself and Brian create our own lines, and then based on what the sports books offer up, we either find value or we don't find value. Rather than try to project what the sports book is going to do, we simply give you what our true line is, and if they send out a number that offers value, we have a bet. If not, then we have a pass. For this one, both myself and Brian bring Syracuse out at around 12, 12.5 as a true line. I made the total 133.5 as well. My leans to Syracuse and under in this game. Yourself?
It's interesting. We've talked before the football season on preseason rankings, that kind of thing. These were the two teams that were picked by everybody. They're supposed to know the Big East to be the class of this conference. And Connecticut has been anything but. This is a team, you know, they lost a player to the NBA last year, but they were a 500 ball club in their own league, and then they got hot at the right time. And wins the national championship. But it tells you right there, once again, how putting out preseason rankings is crazy.
And worse, believing in them, using them to bet.
Yeah, and if you take a look at how these two teams have played this year, I mean, look at our line. I mean, you've got a Syracuse team who's coming off that overtime win against Georgetown. They've got a big game at Louisville on deck.
And we still make them
12, 12.5 in this game. So I'll let you get to it because this is something that you want to talk about. But it's just interesting how people without any knowledge of how these teams are going to work out and what they've lost and what's coming back can make those kind of judgments.
I agree. The bottom line is this. You're usually never going to get betting value on the defending national champion the year following. Right. You know, at least early on. You know, they're the hot team. They're defending the title. You're hardly ever going to get line value. So I wasn't surprised in UConn's ATS mark of 7 and 12. But I am surprised at how bad they are straight up. You know, I mean, this is a team that's 15 and 8 with a lot of padded wins in there. I just don't think they're a good team. They're one of the most inexperienced teams in the country. And to me, now they're having, you know, problems with the coaching. And I mean, there's just internal problems besides what's going on out in the court. And that's never good when you're not having a good season. On the flip side, Syracuse, you can't do much better. You know, they're 24-1. They're perfect at home. And on top of that, even though they're been ranked right there in the top 3 pretty much throughout the year, they're still 15 and 9 against the spread, which is extremely respectable, you know, profitable for a team that's getting all this hype. So this is a really good Syracuse team. The thing about this matchup and why I like the under is because you're talking about two very tall teams. These are big teams. And what usually happens, I kind of like to compare it to boxing or more importantly, MMA. When you get two wrestlers going at it, that usually, you know, negates each other. And it turns into a stand-up fight, even though you have the two best wrestlers on the planet meeting. And I think with this, it's the same way. You got two of the tallest, biggest teams in the country. It's going to come down to outside shooting. I give Syracuse the edge because they're playing at home. But then you look at both teams' defense against, their field goal percentage against is two of the best in all of college basketball. UConn number 4, Syracuse number 12. So I don't see too much, you know, lights out shooting. So I like the under, and I think late in the second half, it's one of those games where UConn misses some shots, Syracuse makes some shots, and what was a 7-point game turns into a 14, 15-point blowout. And for me, I'm hoping they put a line out of 9.5, 10, which we probably won't see. But if that's the case, I'll jump on Syracuse.
Yeah, if this line's 10 or less, I'll be with you on Syracuse. It's not a good matchup for Connecticut. Connecticut's big advantage is in the front court against just about everybody they play. And as you pointed out, Syracuse is big in that regard too. Connecticut has really struggled against the zone. They struggled against the 2-3 zone of Louisville in the last game. Syracuse plays the zone as good or better than anybody out there, and now they have the big guys underneath for the rebounding. You know, I've heard some quotes from some of the Connecticut players, and they're not shooting with any confidence right now at all. So you've got a team that's really struggled. I think the last 3 games they've failed to reach 60 points or something in that range. I mean, it's been pretty bad. They're going on the road. They're 1-6 on the road. They have not played well on the road at all. 1-6 against the spread. And they're going up against this Syracuse team that's really a bad matchup for them. They're not playing with any confidence shooting from the field. So, you know, I'm going to lay the points here as long as we get a credible number. I don't think we're going to get that number because, as we talked about before we got on the air, at this point, who really wants to back a Connecticut team? The coach is already gone. He may not come back the rest of the season. He's got problems. Anytime he's been gone and the assistants have had to be put in charge, they've done lousy. The team is overexposed. We knew that coming into the season. You're not getting a lot of value here on Connecticut. And the only thing...
Even at double digits.
The only thing I'm concerned about is in that last game against Louisville, there's a lot of people that said Connecticut quit in that second half of the game. So there's a motivating factor right there. Last thing you want as an athlete is people telling you that you quit.
Especially now going up against the best team in the country, arguably.
So this is a proving ground. If Connecticut does not play well in this game, there's no way I want Connecticut for the rest of the regular season because this could be the telling point for the rest of their season.
And look to fade them down the stretch. I agree with you 100%. And with Marquette only 2 games back of Syracuse is going to put in a focused effort from here on out. Finally, there's a little revenge in it for Syracuse as well. Last year, they were favored at Madison Square Garden in the Big East tournament. UConn, we saw the run they went on, went in there, beat them 76-71. Syracuse only 11 free throw attempts in that game. UConn 28 free throw attempts. You can't really look at last year's games in college basketball because the rosters change drastically, especially with good clubs. You don't get too many juniors, too many seniors. But those that are still on the team, and there are a lot of players on both these teams that were there last year, I just think a little added motivation for revenge for Syracuse to show we're the dominant team in the Big East. And I think you get up for the national champions. You know, as down of a year as UConn's have been, they still have the title right now. The belt's around their waist until someone cuts the nets
down.
Months at least. Until someone else cuts the nets, they got the belt. So I think we see a good effort from Syracuse, motivated effort. I like Syracuse and under. You have our true line right there at 12. If you could get better than that, it's worth a play. My over-under's 133.5. I think he comes out higher than that. Therefore, we should get a play there. We'll see how it goes. We're going to break down another Big Ten matchup, college basketball, then head over to the NBA for a big one on Sunday. Don't forget, go to pregamevideos.com. We'll be in there talking about the games, passing along our notes, and all the videos are in one thread.